infested upstairs, unfinished closet. Aunt Betty was the one in charge, so it was her decision what to do with it. None of us wanted it. I mean, we wanted it, but what would we do with it? And so she asked me, would the Historical Society be interested in it? And of course, I never say no. So I took it home, filled the pockets with mothballs, and hung it in the basement. And that's where it has been until 5 weeks ago. So then I thought, you know, it's dirty. Do we dare try to get it clean? So I took it to the military museum there in Jefferson City, where the National Guard is located now, and got some advice from them, showed them what I had, and would I dare? Could I get it clean? Would they advise that or just forget it? So this fella said, you know, it's not in that bad shape. Yes, it's got mothball spots on it and dirty spots. And so I asked, who would you take it to get it cleaned? So he recommended Capital Cleaning in Jefferson City. That's on McCarty Street. We're McCarty and Jefferson, I believe it is. So I took it in there, and a week later, this is what I got back. That, and here's the overcoat that he wore. I was quite pleased with the way it turned out. I was afraid to just fall apart, but that wasn't the case. So my question is, what's the story behind the uniform? It's been in the Barnhart's possession for 80 plus years. And you think, where was it before that? Because I asked that because within the pants and the jacket, there are other men's names.
They wrote them in.
Other men's names.
So I don't know if it was used by men from former services or if it was names of some of his friends. I guess it was from former services from World War I, but I may be wrong.
Did you write down? I feel like they had a different uniform.
Did they pull those dead soldiers and reassign them?
Well, he was a
They didn't
medic.
have time to do that, I don't think.
He was a medic, so,
Yeah.
Sharon, did
he
you write
took
down the
care of
names?
yeah.
Military reassigned uniforms whenever people.
So my guess
Pass.
is that it
Service.
was used in World War I, but I may be totally wrong about it.
Well, I have pictures of Uncle Albert in his World War I uniform, but I feel like it's different. But he went to the Philippines and it was a lot hotter there. So
Oh, and not wool.
yeah, so I don't know.
Okay,
It just depends.
Huh.
Beth, my daughter-in-law, I had her take some pictures before I took it to the cleaners, thinking whatever they use for cleaning it may take those names completely out or destroy them a bit. And I brought two of the better printed ones. This one says Zimmerman 658, and there's a C there. I think that may be a company C. And here's Martin, WOKASEN. And there's some letters and numbers underneath that. So, I don't know who these people are. His cap didn't have any other name in it, and this picture didn't print well. I ran out of ink. But it does have B4954, and that was the number assigned to him because every piece of his uniform has that same identification in it. You probably haven't saw that in all of yours too, didn't you, or not?
I haven't a clue.
In the event that pieces got separated, then they could get them back to the rightful owner, probably. As we go on, today we want to concentrate on the time after the uniform came into Uncle Ellis's possession. He was inducted, maybe I better back up here a minute. Where did I get my information? Two sources. In 1949, I believe it was, the American Legion here wanted to do a kind of, I call it a yearbook, because the sample book I saw looked very much like a high school yearbook with pictures and of course these had military information in them. Marvin Helms was the commander of the local American Legion organization, and he and some of the other members found this questionnaire somewhere, or else they made it up themselves. I think they found it somewhere probably. It doesn't look like somebody locally would have made it up. It's too professional. But anyway, they contacted all of the veterans in Marys County that they could get hold of and sent them this questionnaire. They published it in the newspaper so that if they missed anybody and didn't have a contact, then they could reach some people by newspaper and word of mouth. It simply asks for name, address, date of induction, branch of the service, training stations and dates, date of embarkation, theater of operation, medals earned, date returned to the United States, discharge station, date of discharge, the rank, and how long they served, and what was their occupation now. And then there was a place for extra remarks. And Uncle Ellis, using pencil, filled out the whole thing,
Oh.
sent it to them along with a picture, which probably was one of the very first. No, this one's not it. This was one of the first pictures of him. The one that he sent to them was probably one of the final pictures, because it's the one with the 3 stripes and the T on it.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, that was one of my main sources, the one I started with. Then I found this book in a box of stuff that had his caps and the flag and the notice from a memorial notice that came from the president to Mildred, probably at the time of his death or shortly after. But he had this book, the history of the 94th Infantry Division. You can see it right there on his shoulder badge. But that was a real good source. Between the two, the stations he identified on that paper for the American Legion and this, I tracked him all the way from Marys County to Germany and back.
Wow.
And Sharon, I have in the stuff that Mom had, that
This military stuff.
Do you want to see it?
the stuff that was at the house that Mom boxed up. And when Dad went to assisted living, he said, you take that to your house. So all of his original induction papers, all of that's in there. And I put them in an album. I brought them. So somebody has to be the keeper of the history at some point. But I went through all that stuff and found everything that was in there about his military service. With the stamps, the seals,
Okay.
all of that.
Some of the letters that he wrote home are in
Oh,
there.
really?
Yeah.
Gosh, that's
So,
interesting to read those.
Wow.
and if it, maybe a family at a time wants to take them and read through that stuff or whatever you want to do, but
Okay.
you'll be able to add to your
Well, yeah, that's
collection.
great. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere,
Okay.
I guess it's in the stuff, I don't know where it came from. I guess it's in some of our stuff at home, I don't know. There was a letter there from, about his discharge. And he, I think a colonel had written it, if I'm not mistaken. Did you see anything like that in your?
What was it about?
It was about his discharge and how he was wounded in Germany.
Yeah.
Oh, you got all that?
Well, there is some in there about, how he was on the front line,
Yeah,
and he made sure that the men were taken care of even though he was wounded.
he refused retreatment and
Yeah.
stuff. Okay.
So there's some of that
I
kind of
didn't know
thing
where
too.
I had read that, but anyway,
Mom may have given you a copy of it or something, I don't know.
Might have been in another box of stuff that.
Yeah, yeah, there's so many boxes of stuff.
Okay, he was inducted on March 21st, 1941, at the age of 26. Where he initially went, I'm not real certain, but according to the names of the stations that he identified on the questionnaire, he probably went to J.B. Grant Camp in Illinois.
I have pictures of him there.
Was that J.B. Jefferson Barracks?
No,
I don't think so, it's a different location. This camp had originally been a World War I training camp. And after World War I, it became a National Guard facility. And then it was reactivated on March 15th, 1941 for World War II people. Physical exams, it was an induction, it was reactivated as an induction center. So physical exams, medical training for draftees was the main thing going on there. But a large number of the men also got their basic training there. So I don't know if he was among those that received basic training in Illinois or not. I assume he was. Also, the information I found was that approximately 100,000 military corpsmen were trained at that facility, trained in medicine, medical stuff. So I guess that's where he first got his start in being a medic, I guess you'd say. At some point, he was transferred to Fort Crockett, Texas. And according to the internet, that was at one time a big equipment training center, but it also was a POW camp at one time. Now, what he did there, I have no idea. If he was there at the time of POWs, he might have been a medic for them, I don't know. But spent some time there, but eventually then he became a part of the 94th Infantry Division, and from there, all of the camps that he named on his paperwork identified exactly what I found in this book as they went to Europe. The 94th Infantry Division was originally a World War I center, and it was in Massachusetts. But on September 15th, 1942, it was transferred to Fort Custer, Michigan. It soon became evident that there wasn't enough room at that camp for the training that they had to provide for these soldiers. So they began to move them to Camp Phillips, Kansas. By November 15th of 1942, they were all back together in Kansas. But it was one of the coldest winters on record in Kansas that year. A lot of their training was of course, outdoors with 0 or sub-zero temperatures, which was a real challenge. In the spring, the rains came, and that made it a muddy mess everywhere. Blue like mud. And of course, Kansas in the summertime has extremely high temperatures, but they endured. By August of 1943, they were sent to Camp Forest in Tennessee. And once again, they were split apart. Some of them had to go to Camp McCain in Mississippi. And each one of these camps are named on he wrote it on that paperwork. In March of 1944, flooding was taking place in Mississippi, and your immediate thought is along the Mississippi River, but it wasn't. It was about 75 miles east of the Mississippi, around a place called Grenada, a Grenada area. That was near where the camp was that they were stationed at the time. That's also about 100 miles south of, due south of Memphis. But anyway, they were called in there to rescue some locals who were marooned in an area. So the 94th Division rescued 153 people from the flooding. About a month later, the governor of Mississippi and some of the honorary colonels visited the 94th camp after the flooding, of course, had gone away. And for the benefit of the visitors, a field artillery group did a demonstration. Part of the show included men crawling across a soggy, muddy field. In the water holes in that field, some nitrostarch charges had been planted in the water and the mud. As the men crawled across that field, of course, they touched one, it went off. Huge explosion, muddy water went everywhere. And of course, all the governor and all of the colonels got showered. So even though the troops had some very serious work to do, tasks to do, I think this was a prank. And that says all the levels. I don't know that he was involved in that, but it would be something that he would do. Now, I'm not familiar with nitrostarch charges. Are you?
No, it was different when I was there.
I
C4 when I was there.
They couldn't have been deadly, or they would have been doing it as a demonstration. It had to be something more for fun. But it's enough to get the water rolling.
We still do a training like that here.
What?
We still go through trainings like that.
Still do training like that.
We had to crawl across fields under gunfire and not get a mine.
On May 5th of 1944, the 94th was told to prepare for overseas duty. So the movement to Camp Shanks, New York, by train began on July 23rd of 1944. I don't know how many days they spent there, but less than a week, because by the evening of August 4th and 5th, the troops traveled by train again into New York City. There they boarded the Queen Elizabeth. On the 6th, they sailed down the Hudson River and out into the Atlantic Ocean, and destination unknown. While on the Queen Elizabeth, they were given 2 meals a day, and there were so many men on the ship that they had to do 6 shifts of serving food to the men. It was strictly forbidden to throw any kind of trash overboard because it could be tracked by the enemy. Life jackets had to be worn or at least carried with them 24 hours a day. The course was altered. The ship was taking a zigzagging path, and that the direction had to be altered every 2 to 4 minutes. Now, how you would do that with a ship that size, I don't know. Every 2 to 4 minutes, you would think you were going in circles, but they managed. Every afternoon, they would announce the blackout time for night. At that designated time, all porthole covers had to be fastened, and there was absolutely no smoking on deck. One mistake would have meant the fate of 18,000 troops and 85,000 tons of cargo on that ship. So the Queen was a lush target for any enemy that might be in nearby. One night, a brightly lighted hospital ship was spotted, and the Queen suddenly fled the area so as not to be spotted by any working submarines that may be around. The Queen more than once made sudden turns, and I read one place where the men were thrown out of their bunks, made such a sudden turn. Changing directions, increase of speed, and excessive zigzagging to get away. No explanation was ever given by the crew, but the troops all suspected radar had spotted enemy nearby. On August 11th, they sailed into the North Channel, which is up here. Swung around, came up through here to a place called the Firth of Clyde, and went up the Clyde River into Scotland. They stopped at a place called Greenock, Greenock, Greenock or Greenock, Scotland, and that's near Glasgow. There, the ship had to anchor midstream because of the shallow waters on each side, and the harbors or the wharves weren't capable of handling the extreme tonnage on the ship. They began debarkation the following day and were split into smaller groups, and so they came down into the southern part of England and stayed there for a while. On September 4th, they left England, headed across the English Channel. They had come down here to Portsmouth and Southampton, I think it is, in this area. They crossed the English Channel and came to Utah Beach. And that had previously been bombed. That's the Normandy area. And so that was their first sight of the destruction that takes place during wartime. On September 8th, they were assigned General Maloney to command the 94th Infantry Division. Their first assignment was to relieve the 6th Armored Division, which was over here along the coast, the western coast of France, because Germany had taken over some of these ports for their submarines. And then from there, they went out in the Atlantic and watched for Queen Elizabeth to come across. But General Maloney stated that their mission was exclusively containing, he said. Under no circumstances were they to attack. General Patton was with the 3rd Army, and they got together along here. He and his officers had a different agenda. Number 1, to capture the port cities on the western coast of France. And number 2, to hit the German forces in France as hard as possible, and in turn pursue the enemy as long and as far as possible. So on September 10th, the 301st Infantry, which was the infantry group that Uncle Ellis was a part of, was the 1st regiment in the 94th Division to see action. After spending 3 to 4 months in this northwest part of France, the 94th headed across France to come over into this area. Past Paris, over here. Other than being in a medical detachment in the 94th Division, I don't know just what role Uncle Ellis played. Some of you can maybe answer some of that. I don't know. But every one of the camps I've mentioned so far, he listed, and they are also listed in the book. So the two together, they match up perfectly. This area leading into Germany, there was a triangle area there with rivers on two sides of it, and Germany was in control. After scouting the area, the 94th made some careful and coordinated plans with all of their troops that they were going to take it. It was in the hilly area, so early on February 19th, at 2 o'clock in the morning, they headed out. They began the long climb up the ridge. All seemed to be going well with little resistance, but suddenly one platoon got into the edge of a minefield, and the action began. The first explosion alerted the Germans, and so they were up and at their guns, and so they were the Americans on the ground were trying to dodge mines going off, but then the Germans were firing at them overhead too. By dawn, the American tanks had arrived at the top of the ridge and cleared it so they could get through, but that did not stop the action. They pushed forward, fighting for 2 days, day and night, with many casualties. The end result was that the Americans took over the ridge. It was the fall of the Germans at that point. But there were lots of casualties along the way. From January 7, 1945 through March 25, 78 days, the 94th Division suffered the loss of almost 11,000 men. Uncle Ellis was wounded on that first day when they were going up the hill, or at the top of the hill, I don't know just what time, but that was on February 19th. He said it happened at a place called Tedding, Tedding, but I can't find that. I think it was a different spelling, and being German, maybe it had that sound, but what I could find on maps was Tettingen, more like Tettingen. I should have made Bob try to get me some answers on.
That word, that location is in some of that paperwork, so you can look at the spelling and see what you get.
Okay, I may be wrong. It might have been Tedding. But I think this is more of a German spelling with the T sound. He was wounded. I don't know if it was from a mine or gunfighter, but he wound up in 3 different hospitals there in Europe. He was in France, in England, and in Scotland before heading back to the United States. He arrived back in the U.S. on March 27th, 1945, and was put into a hospital at Mitchell Field, New York. I don't know how he got back to the U.S., whether he was on a plane or on a ship. I suspect it was by ship at that time. I may be wrong. But he also, from New York then, he was sent to Buckley Field Hospital in Colorado, and also he spent some time at Bushnell General Hospital in Utah. And one of those I read was a place where they were studying and figuring out how to use or make prosthesis. Now, he never had a prosthesis, right? Only a brace of some kind.
I think that may have been where he made that cane. Larry, you have a
I
cane?
suspect it was in
It's in the truck
Colorado or
up there, do you
Utah.
wanna see it?
We well over the,
It's got Tennessee on it.
huh?
It's got Tennessee on it.
Oh, it does. So you see, that
It's
would have been
the-
early,
Tenn.
you know?
Oh,
And it's a medical, facility of some sort. And I understood that he made that cane when he was wounded in the United States. After he got back to the United States, I thought so.
I don't know.
that may have been the symbol of where it happened. Where he was T-E-N,
T-E-N-N.
T-E-N-N.
And then it's got another name, I can't remember what it was, but it's some sort of medical facility, I don't know.
Okay.
And that's T-E-D and T-E-T-T.
A couple other places that he mentioned on his paperwork were the Azores Islands and Newfoundland. Nowhere in the 94th Division information can I find either one of those mentioned. I think they must have been on his return to the United States, because things I have read, they were both stopping places for refueling when they're coming back from Europe. I know my husband was in Germany during the Vietnam era, and when they flew back, they landed in Newfoundland to refuel before they came on to the United States. And you think, oh, that's way further north. But the earth is round. We do not go straight east to Europe. We gotta go northeast. So coming back, I think that's, I have a feeling those two places were just stopovers. So after spending 16 months in hospitals, having served for 5 years, 2 months and 16 days, he was then discharged on June 6th, 1946, with a rank of Tech 4. These Tech 4, is it on this side? No, just a T. These two, there's a patch like this on the other sleeve as well. 3 stripes is sergeant, and here's the T for tech. This circular patch with the A stands for 3rd Army, and that's the one that General Patton was in charge of. The patches here, I don't know what those are
I
for.
wondered about that.
Larry, would you have an idea?
I think it was something to do with years of service.
Overseas service.
Yeah, overseas.
Overseas
Yeah.
duty? Okay.
But also, on your stripes there, that is sergeant, but that's a 5 and not a 4.
Yeah.
In today's military, I don't know.
Oh,
what-
in today's military?
That 3 stripes up like that is a sergeant.
It's E5, yeah.
But, so in the 40s to the 60, 80 years, then they've changed their,
I wouldn't have thought they would, but maybe so.
I don't know.
Well, and the discharge may be E4 because of a pay grade. Maybe he wasn't an E5 long enough to have earned benefits, full benefits for retirement purposes. That military does some strange things at times.
Okay, here, this, of course, was the 94th Infantry Division patch. There were 2 caps in this box of stuff that I had. One was wool, like the wool coat over there. And I haven't done it yet, but it's gonna have to go in a dumpster. Being wool, it's so full of holes, but it had this, what do you call this badge? The emblem on the front of the cap.
Is it an eagle?
What?
Is it an eagle?
Yeah,
Oh,
just a army.
Anyway, all the caps, I guess, had one of these. Now, probably he just received one of these and it was on the wool cap. And Bob took it off and put it on this cap, because the other one will have to be destroyed, I think. This one being cotton, or a form of cotton twill, lasted better. The moths didn't get into it.
The
You
eagle
know,
is a
there
sign
are
of
some-
freedom.
I'm sorry,
The eagle is a sign of freedom.
freedom, okay.
And I think one of his, medals was the Freedom Medal.
And of course, the buttons,
Does that
don't they
sound
all
right?
have an eagle on them too? Can't see. But anyway, that's the story that I know. I do remember when he was in Columbia in the Veterans Hospital, he was there getting ready to have radiation treatments. And Mom and Dad and I don't know if any of the rest of you were with us or not, but we went up to visit him one afternoon. And what got him started, I don't know, but he told about when he was in France. I guess he was on guard duty, and he went up a hill doing his job. Coming up on the other side was, I don't know if it's a German or a Frenchman, I think it was in France, so it might have been one of the French soldiers. They saw each other, they both turned around, walked back from where they come. Neither one of them wanted to be there, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
and surprisingly, neither one of them shot. Do you remember him telling any stories? See, that's the only one.